All righty. We have the thumbs up. So if everybody could please take your seats, we are going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everybody, for coming today to our inaugural Ohio Rail Summit. I am so excited to see this crowd today from, I know I've seen from the registrations, not only all across Ohio, but really all across the country. So that's pretty incredible. I don't know, could we get a raise of hands for folks who are here from outside of Ohio even today? That's pretty remarkable, and I think it goes to show you that, yes, this mission is all across Ohio, and we've got thousands and thousands of members across Ohio, but we are impacting the way that rail is thought about all across the country, and I think that's pretty remarkable. Also, it is important to note that the rest of the country does rely on Ohio getting its stuff together because there's a lot of routes going through Ohio to get from the East Coast to Chicago and eventually the West Coast. So I wanted to welcome everybody here today. Thank you for making your way to Columbus. We've got a fantastic lineup today, some incredible speakers, and I think it's just going to solidify all of the growth that we've had in the past year for our movement. My name is Mitch Radakovich. I'm the board chair of All Aboard Ohio. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, down in the Over the Rhine neighborhood, if you're familiar, and I would like to welcome you here today. A tiny bit of background on All Aboard Ohio to start. We were founded in 1973, and we've been advocating for passenger rail in Ohio for over 50 years. And specifically, we exist to advocate for the establishment, improvement, and maintenance of a robust transportation system across Ohio with an emphasis on passenger rail. And why we're doing this Rail Summit today is, again, focused on showcasing who All Aboard Ohio is, but even more so focused on showcasing this coalition that we're developing that goes so much beyond All Aboard Ohio. We just happen to be the ones putting the summit on. One of the big focal points of our movement right now is a program in the federal government called the Corridor ID program. And we'll go into a lot of depth on this later, but just to set some context, this program was set as a part of the bipartisan infrastructure law a couple of years ago, and it's supporting the development of state-supported routes. And I'm sure that we will touch on it in terms of the different types of passenger rail routes in the United States. There's long-distance routes, which go through Ohio right now, but there are other routes where the states and the federal government partner to create shorter routes that will benefit specific states. And we'll talk through the specific routes here shortly. There's a multi-step approach, and so as a result of that, for each of those steps, we need to be right at the forefront of our advocacy, making sure that it continues to move forward in the planning process. But even as we're going through those different planning steps, there's some incredible moments that are happening already in Ohio, and actually across the country. The first big news, whoa, all right. The first big news story, don't love that. Page was reloaded because it was using significant memory. That's okay. We'll get this out of the way now, right? Okay, that is good. So the first story is a story out of actually North Carolina, which was one of the states that we featured in our annual meeting last year. We had their head of passenger rail come in. And he shared about a over $200 million investment that they've made in rural North Carolina, Lexington, North Carolina, right on their equivalent of the 3C&D, which connects Raleigh through their other middle-sized cities onto Charlotte. And they have up to 5 trains a day now going, up from 3. So they're growing. And as a part of them seeing this investment and this passion that North Carolina has for passenger rail, the Siemens company, which is one of the companies providing the train cars, has decided to invest $200 million in building their new factory to develop the new rail cars in America and specifically in North Carolina. And what I would challenge is, if we are bringing in tens or dozens or hundreds of new routes across our country, we're going to need even more rail cars. And I know of a couple of factories up in the Youngstown area that would really love to be building rail cars right now. So just think about that and the impact that that could have on our state. Second, we have tremendous work going on in many of our small towns and cities across the state. one of the most exciting news stories this year for passenger rail is in Oxford, Ohio. So that's down in Southwest Ohio, home to Miami University of Ohio, right? And they have opened up their multimodal terminal for buses already, and they're working on the completion of their Amtrak passenger rail platform, which could eventually serve as a stop on the Cardinal, connecting Oxford, Ohio to Cincinnati, and also up to Chicago and Indianapolis by passenger rail, which would be truly incredible. The third one, which is also incredibly exciting and something that I know we'll touch on a little bit later, is the funding that is being secured by our coalitions to continue moving forward in that planning process. This news story specifically focuses on our friends at MORPC. We've got Joe in the audience who's going to be on our panel later, who have worked to bring their coalition together and secure the funding for the next step of one of the big routes, the Midwest Connect. And lastly, another very exciting news update. I'm going to turn the volume down slightly because we learned during. There we go. That just got announced this past week about the long distance routes, including the ones going through Ohio.
We're just getting started.
New era, new trains. This is Amtrak's moment. We've begun the process for our largest ever long-distance train order. Over 800 cars on 14 routes.
These new rail cars will finally replace Amtrak's aging fleet and bring travelers the world-class service they deserve, helping usher in Secretary Duffy's vision for a new golden age of travel. The FRA is working closely with Amtrak to deliver these modern American-made cars that will help improve safety, reliability, and the customer experience.
Amtrak passengers have been riding the same trains for decades, but that's about to change in a big way. Today's announcement sends a clear message. New, state-of-the-art trains are coming, and they'll be built right here in America.
Our customers deserve the best. This new fleet will move us full speed ahead into a new era of American train travel. We are just getting started.
We're just getting started.
Woo. So as we can see, our coalition is strong, and even at the national level, tremendous investments are being made in the improvement of passenger rail all across the country. This points us towards the opportunity for a true renaissance here in Ohio. We've got the Corridor ID program in process. There's improvements to our long-distance routes, including the evaluation of bringing our Cardinal route, which only goes 3 days a week, up to daily, not weekly. Every single day. And then also, we're tremendously excited about all of the work that's being done at the local level to improve connectivity within our individual cities. There's work being done on bus rapid transit systems in multiple of our cities. I know Cincinnati, Columbus, I know Toledo's studying. There's been tremendous improvements to the Go Bus network, which is an inner-city bus network that's sponsored by the Metropolitan Planning Organization in Athens, Ohio, in partnership with ODOT. And additionally, there's been incredible improvements to our micro-mobility network, so improving bike and pedestrian access to folks all across the state. So these are the 3 proposed Corridor ID routes that we're specifically advocating for, and then there's a 4th Corridor ID route that would be improvements to the Cardinal as well. The first one, which is probably the most famous, is the 3C&D connecting Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, and Cleveland. The second one is the Cleveland, Toledo, Detroit route, which would connect Toledo and Detroit by passenger rail for the first time in decades. And third is the Midwest Connect route, which would start in Chicago with a stop in Fort Wayne, potentially a stop in Lima, and then on to Columbus, and finally on to Pittsburgh with some intermediate stops as well. So, Ohio Rail is moving from a concept to reality. The momentum is incredible. We are growing our bipartisan support in the State House. Our coalitions are involved and will be showcased today. And we even have studies showing tremendous public support. A recent ODOT study done for their long-range planning showed that around 80% of Ohioans support improvements to the rail network in Ohio. We've also seen this in our organization specifically, with growth of All Aboard Ohio to 8,000 members. And as you can see on this map here, this is the map of every single zip code in Ohio with at least one All Aboard Ohio member. It's basically the whole state. And I think that's worthy of some excitement. So. And this is so important because now no matter whose office we're going into at the State House or in the City Hall, anywhere around the state, they cannot say that nobody in their district cares, because no matter which district, somebody does care, and y'all are all here today to show that. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to our inaugural Ohio Rail Summit.